Hello and welcome to the In Conversation series. I'm Louis Atkinson, and here for episode 3 of In Conversation, we're very fortunate to be joined by none other than international event rider Jeanette Brakewell.
Is it afternoon still? Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, good afternoon. Who knows? We've all lost track of time now with what's going on at the moment, and we talk a little bit about this free time, but I think the unfortunate reason why riders have got more free time is because of the awful situation we're in at the moment, which is obviously the coronavirus. You know, How have you been adjusting to coronavirus at Abbott's Homestead?
Well, I mean, if I'm being honest, it's kind of been a little bit like a holiday, really, because we can't go anywhere, we can't do anything, but really focusing on the training of the horses. You know, we've got the nice facilities here at home, so really focusing on training the horses that are here. Unfortunately, some horses have gone home because their businesses have been affected by the coronavirus, and obviously people are trying to cut down on what they're spending on, etc., etc. So yeah, I mean, I've sort of lost out that way a little bit, but you know, most owners have been really good. Horses have stayed. I've still got my staff here. We're still training, still supporting them. So, and you know, we're so lucky. The weather's been amazing. And I wouldn't want to be eventing at the minute anyway, because it's like concrete everywhere.
How have you made the adjustment then, if they're obviously not out competing, they're still training, but what has been, you know, the biggest change at the yard?
I suppose that they don't need to be as fit as they would normally be, but you know, still doing flat work, still jumping them at home, hacking, lunging. We're just trying to keep busy. The horses are really well actually, and the nice thing I think is that there's no pressure. So there's no pressure to have them produce for that test on that day, or you know, you're not going competing. So you can actually focus. I've been focusing a lot more on the basics of the horses, focusing on my own riding and working on that. And it has given you more time at the end of the day. And just doing loads of odd jobs around the place. You know, I've sort of non-horsey jobs. I've painted the coffee table. Looks really nice. I've done some tiling in the other tack room, which is I've got a couple of tenants, so there's one wall that needed tiling. I've been doing that. You know, and if I can do it myself, I will do. So I can usually turn my hand to most things. So yeah, just catching up on stuff that you just don't get time to do. Yeah, and it's a lie when you say I don't do the cleaning because I haven't got time. I still don't like doing the cleaning, but yes, we've got time, so we do.
Yeah, like you say, it's that free time, isn't it? And although it's an awful situation, it's actually given a lot of people the time to catch up on jobs that ordinarily might not have been done, whether it's retiling or like you say, going back to the fundamentals with some of the horses. And look at that word fundamentals, we look at your roots, we'll go all the way back to when it started. It was around age 4 when it all kicked off for you.
Yeah, I think, well, I can't remember a day I haven't been riding a horse or been associated with horses. So, yeah, since I can remember, I've been riding horses, and I think I knew from a very early age that was going to be my chosen career. I think when I was about 8, I decided that I was going to go to the Olympics. I was going to go around badminton. I think badminton was the big event then. Burley was sort of, I knew it was another big event, but at sort of 8 years old, it wasn't quite the same as badminton. But then, you know, as you get competing and you realise there's 2 halves to the season, and you do that a lot then and that lot then, especially in the old days when we had the roads and tracks and the steeplechase, you would split it into 2 seasons, whereas now the season just keeps going really. But yeah, horses was always a chosen career. Parents had horses. Mum was in pony club. I went to the same pony club quite a few years later. And you know, we had nice ponies, but nothing expensive. We had to work around the dairy farm and just go around the cows up on my horse, and just generally fairly feral outside.
Fond memories of being a member of the
yes, Yeah. No, we used to have our rallies on the Red Cat Field, which was behind the Red Cat pub. It was all on the side of a hill. We had camps held there as well. Did all the stable management stuff. Probably did my D test, C test there. No, good memories. And parents used to. Well, they basically used to drop me off there. My younger sister rode as well, Kath. They used to drop us off there, leave us, go home, do the cows, do whatever animals they had to look after, and then come back later on in the day to pick us up. Me and Kath would be sat there just holding our ponies going, God, it's late
When
again.
is he coming?
Yeah, when is he coming? We just sat there happily. Nobody stayed with us. We were just left again, feral. And it was great. Really, really good times. But funny enough, during pony club years, I wasn't that brave cross country. It was a bit daunting for me. I didn't. It scared me a little bit. Especially the tiger trap in the corner at the Red Cat Field. I didn't like that one. I don't think I ever jumped it. So yeah, it's funny how not being confident at it at the time, I'd learned to ride better and with having nice horses, gain confidence. And I suppose at the end of the day, riding well is all about confidence.
Is that what changed your confidence, having a different ride? What went from being a little bit nervous on the Red Cat Field to having the bravery and the boldness to then go and tackle some of the biggest events on the circuit?
I think it wasn't until I got I think it was a 15-hand horse called I had a 14-2 called Gypsy, and he was an older horse, which was came to me from I think it was a girl in Blackburn Pony Club used to ride him, and he'd gone through their family, and then he came to us, and I had him. I think younger sister had him, and he was a real good cross country horse and really bold and brave. And I think he helped a lot. And then my next horse, Zacharias, came from people from the Pendle Pony Club, Walters they were called, and Gisborne Way. And he was, I think we got him when he was 16. And again, because he'd been there, done that, got the T-shirt, he gave me a lot of confidence as well. And he was the horse that I did started JRNs at. I think I had my first win on him at Skipton Horse Trials many years ago. I can't remember when it was. I'd have probably been 15, maybe. So popping around a novice at 15 years old. Looking back now, I think was a fair achievement, especially at Skipton.
Yeah.
I know what it was like then. It was pretty tough. I was tough enough now.
Do you ever think when you were in Pony Club at all that, obviously you say at a young age you were going to go to the Olympic Games, you were going to do that, but did you ever really think, yes, it's going to happen?
I think it was always in the back of my mind, because it was always going to be my career to do horses. It only, I suppose, really became real when I got over to you, and he was doing 3-star level and doing really well, and then went to do badminton. Then it became real. I suppose it's the year before he went to badminton. I thought this could be my top horse and do the job for me. But as a 5-year-old, you would have never imagined he would have gone on to be as good as he was.
Yeah, because he started off with a racing background.
Yeah, he was bought from Ireland by the Clegg family in Yorkshire, and he didn't really turn out to be what they thought they bought. They thought they bought this big 16-2 strapping thoroughbred by over the river, bred to win the Gold Cup, bred to do all the national hunt stuff. And he came over this weedy little upside down thing, and it turned out he got a bit of a heart issue. Not a heart murmur. Well, I suppose it is a heart murmur. It used to beat 3 times, miss 2 beats.
Right.
And it's still the same now. It's not changed. And he went to the veterinary hospital in Edinburgh to have it all checked out and make sure that everything was doing as what it should do. And actually, once he was in working, the heartbeat picked up a regular beat. It was all going in the right direction. And my theory is his heart, he must have a really big heart, because it obviously doesn't need to beat so many times to get all the blood and all the oxygen around the body. But once it was working, it was working properly. So it was never an issue. It was never a problem. But as a young horse, you thought, yeah, it's a scratty little thing. we'll give it a whirl. And actually, John T. Evans, he had a bit of a hand in Jack when he was younger, because he was working for the Cleggs at the time and sort of rebroke him and got him to enjoy having people around and like having a rider on his back. So I don't think he never raced, but he went into a racing yard and he didn't like it at all. I mean, he is a bit of a stress head anyway. He weaves quite a lot. But I think that's another reason he stayed sound. All the weaving left to right has kept his joints supple.
And if we move through your childhood, it was age 16 then when you left school and then went on to work with Chris McGrann. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, so I suppose my parents instigated that, because I didn't know Chris at all, but my parents knew Chris through I think it was through, they used to call it the HIS, Hunters Improvement Society, which then became the Light Horse Breeder Society. I think that's how they knew Chris. And yes, I left school at 16. I think I stayed at home for the holidays. And September, off I went to Chris's to start my apprenticeship, as it were, which to me it was all right. It was an unpaid apprenticeship, but I got to take my horse with me. I think at one point I had 2 horses there. I learned to handle horses properly, correctly, look after them properly. I mean, Chris was a real, he was just strict at the end of the day. And I think if you're going to be around horses, to be safe around horses, you have to be very aware of what's going on around you. You can't allow horses to walk over you. They're too big and strong to be like that. And, you know, you've got to be firm but fair with them. Have that bit of discipline there. So that the horses have the sort of mutual respect for you. I was there. I was allowed to break horses in, or shown how to break horses in. Go through that whole process. Yeah, I did everything basically. So it was 4 years of hard graft. I think it's what's probably set me up for the way I run my business now and how I handle the horses and have that respect for them and how I work with my horses now.
I suppose it's hugely educational, isn't it, being with a rider? Is that something, you obviously have apprentices now and, you know, a team of staff with you. You obviously then support that apprenticeship scheme. Is that something that you'd recommend people getting into, you know, working for a professional rider?
Oh yeah, definitely. And that it doesn't suit everybody. I'm going to try not to speak out of turn, but if you want to go into a career with horses, be either riding or grooming, for me, your best way to gain experience is to go to a professional yard or a professional riding school, or whatever industry you want to go in. It's you know, somewhere that does it correctly and is true to life. You know, we know the hours are long. We know it rains. We know it freezes. You have to work in all conditions. And you know, when I was at Chris's, we didn't have any central heating in the house. It was pretty cold actually. There was a log burner and that was it, and it only worked if somebody lit it. You know, my staff I think they're pretty well treated. They've got their own house. They do have to live together, so they've got to learn to live with each other. They do have central heating, except I'm in control of the timer, so I say when it goes on and when it goes off because I pay the bills. Yeah, now I'm working on a professional yard. It's you learn the discipline of it all. It's not, college does not give you the same what's the word? It gives you some knowledge, but it doesn't give you the work ethic that is required to work on a yard, or even to aspire to run your own business. It's hard graft, and that's I do it because I love it, not because I earn loads of money, because I'll tell you now, I don't.
Do you wish that you'd had any advice before starting up on your own? Do you wish you'd had someone there to, to maybe give you certain bits of advice or, critique you at all?
I wish I could afford a secretary. I mean, the paperwork, it comes with it. You have to do the paperwork if you're running a business. It doesn't just do it by itself. So, sometimes I'd be up till 1 o'clock in the morning doing stuff. But I know if I do it in one hit, it's done, and then I can forget about it. Yeah, I think I went from Chris's. I did then go home for a year, and I really didn't enjoy it at all. I was by myself. I'm fairly motivated, but I just found it really difficult to be motivated. I think it was the fact that I was able to compete the horses. You have to ride them every day. You have to jump them. You have to have them fit. That was my motivation. But I didn't, my parents were milking cows most of the day and running the farm. And, I helped a bit. I did a bit of scraping out, go and help round the cows up and help when I could. But it was at a point where I was fairly, I was 21. I was still quite young, and I'd say then I was too young to start my own business, which I was then fortunate to get offered a job with the Lawrence David event team. Which was absolutely amazing because I even got paid to ride the horses. And they supported me. I was there for 2.5 years. They had lovely horses for me to ride. I took Jack with me as well. So I didn't have to buy a lorry. There was a yard set up for me. There was the support. There was coaches there. So I mean that's where Kenneth Clawson first met Kenneth Clawson and John Bowen. Who happens to be one of my tenants. Funny how the world goes round. And I had all the support there possible, and the financial support. It is a really expensive sport. Unless you've got good owners and sponsors that help out, it is or family have got money. Everybody does it in different ways. It is an expensive thing to do, but it's a hobby to me. It's a wonderful way of life. I can't complain about anything at all. And at the end of the day, you get out what you put in. So then I was at Lawrence David, and then it was when I left there, I then went to Norfolk, and that's when I did set up my own business. And my good friend Catherine Shiner, she is now. She came with me and helped me get on my way. And I had a huge leg up in the fact that the yard was rent-free. So it was Harry Simpson and Molly Jackson. And actually, Molly Jackson is now my neighbour, who literally lives just outside that door, who's been a huge supporter of mine. Because I didn't have to try and find rent first. I was able to. I had a few horses, and then the business just built up from there. And it was great. I got 16 stables to play with, an arena, bit of land, cottage. I still had to pay my way, but I didn't have to pay rent for the yard. And I think if it had been different, I could not have got going. I couldn't have got going, and I did not want to go back home and start a business up in Lancashire on the farm, because for me it's too far up north. Saying that, Norfolk is way out on a limb as well, but I could afford to do that. It's a lovely place as well, a really nice place. So I spent a few years there before then moving to Melton Mowbray, a bit more central, renting a yard there, which was great. But I had to get in the real world a bit more there. I had to pay rent, and that's when Harry and Molly, they sold their place in Norfolk actually, because they didn't want another rider there. They really enjoyed following my progress. They were great supporters, and they rented just down the road at Long Clawson. They had a horse with me as well, and it was Harry that actually found this place where I am now, and Harry and Molly bought the main farmhouse and a few acres. I was fortunate to be in a position to buy the rest of the property, which was 3 cottages, another outbuilding, but then all the stables had to be built, the arena had to be built, and I think actually I have to thank Jack for being able to afford the deposit. I say Jack and Richard Holdsworth, who owned Jack for many years, who then gifted him to me. Richard always allowed me to keep the prize money for Jack, so it meant I had a pot to buy my lorry, and also to put a deposit down on this place. And back in the day, I couldn't afford the rules would mean, even though I'm running a business and paying quite a decent sized mortgage now, I would not be able to borrow any money because of the way the setup is now. Back then, we're talking 15, 16 years ago, I could easily get a mortgage, which allowed me to buy this place. I mean, there's still the majority of it belongs to the bank, but it's my place. And I say I'm lucky. Yes, I am lucky, but I've worked for it. I've earned it. And, I keep a lot of money goes into keeping the place neat, tidy, upgrading things, because of, maintenance never stops. I've rambled a lot there.
No, it's fine. It's great to hear that you describe it as that way of life, and I think it's got to be, hasn't it? I don't do it in a half-hearted way at all. You've got to be all in, and that's what matters. And you mentioned John Bowen just a little bit earlier on. That an individual that's quite prolific in the dressage world. Is that someone that do you use his advice quite regularly?
Yes, not just from a riding point of view. John spends a lot of time away teaching. I'd probably only see him once or twice a week, but actually over the last few weeks, because none of us have been able to go off teaching or have clients in, we've all spent a bit more time together, and we are very lucky that Molly, my neighbour, she put a tennis court in last year before. So we've all got pretty good at tennis. I have to say I'm definitely not as good as Mary King. She is a serious tennis player, but certainly got better, and that's what's keeping me fit as well at the minute. But yeah, no, John's a great support. He's very straight talking, which is always good. And we're just all real good mates here.
So before you obviously went on to compete at, the major senior championships, it was then a time at the young rider and junior level for you.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really shine at that level. I got a lovely horse called Uncle Arthur. He was 15-2 thoroughbred. He was bought from the next door farmer for, I think parents paid about £850 for him. But he went 3-star. He went to 4-star now. God, this new money, I'm not used to it. So went to Bramham. We got round. I think we got round one year, not the next year, or vice versa. And I'd had him since I was 12, actually. So I've ridden him from when I was 12 and went through to juniors, young riders. It wasn't good enough to get on any teams, but really enjoyed the training. Went to Jill Watson's a few times, and got to know a lot of people within that age group, and it was really, really good times, actually. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I suppose if you were to look at Pony Club as well, and then look at your time in juniors and young riders, I think it's a great time to make friends, and probably friends for life. A lot of people will start at the bottom and move up, and it's the same group of people that tend to move up through the sport together, which is always really nice to see. But then if we look then at your time at the senior level, quite a few times, or nearly every time, you were the pathfinder for the British team. Added pressure there, going out as the first rider for Team GB?
No, there wasn't more pressure being first to go. Mainly because I didn't know anything about the course. So I rode it as I'd walked it, and how I envisaged myself riding it. And I just stuck to that. And obviously, things don't always go to plan, so then you've got to improvise, but you just ride what's sat underneath you anyway. No, I much preferred to go first. There was one year I went second at Punchestown, and I had a really bad time. I wasn't comfortable going second. I was on edge the whole time, and it didn't work in the end. And I can't say it was because I went second. We had a fall on the course towards the end. Jack was all right, I was all right, but yeah, I'd much prefer to go first because I had no preconceived ideas about the course. I knew my horse was fast and he could jump well, so then it was just down to me keeping my cool and focusing on the job. And I always saw the championships as you've only got this moment in time to do it, so don't balls it up. Just get on and do the job, because you can't replay it. No. Time keeps going, so I had to be really focused on it, and luckily it went well. It went well all the time, apart from that one year when I wasn't first to go.
And being the pathfinder for the British team, do you then, as you come back, relay information to the other team members to help them out?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and we're trying to keep it quiet so that none of the other teams can hear. Obviously I give back my information, how I felt the course rode, if there was a fence that rode differently to how we'd all discussed it, or whether they got tired at a certain point, etc., etc. I just give that information back, but enough information that they needed, but without overloading it, because you don't want to give the next person information that's irrelevant.
Yeah, absolutely. And intertwined with your time at the senior level at those major championships were some Olympic Games too, in fact. Obviously, the Olympic Games at Sydney and Athens. How does the preparation for an Olympic Games differ to, let's say, going jumping around badminton?
No different. You still got that level of competition. They probably need to be, well, actually for Sydney they needed to be pretty fit. You've often if you know where the event is, you know what the terrain's going to be like, etc., etc. So you have yourself prepared, you have your horse as fit as you can get it. For me, you'd always have a horse as fit as if you were going to Badminton or as if you were going to Burghley. I mean, they are the toughest tracks. Yeah. But if you feel they're fit enough to go around Badminton and Burghley, you're fit enough to do a championship.
If we look back at Badminton, quite a while back, it was a totally different format, like you say, with the road tracks and steeplechase. Is that something that you're glad has been phased out, or would you quite fancy to keep in that format?
I really enjoyed it, actually. I missed the steeplechase, to be honest, especially with Overdue. He did do quite a lot of short formats as well, but for me, he ran better after doing the steeplechase, because it allowed me to get my eye in, so that you then come out of the start box not taking that pull, not overprotecting them. If you've had a bit of a balls up on the steeplechase, had a miss at the steeplechase fence, that usually gets the horse sharpened up, the rider sharpened up. The chase fences were more forgiving. So if you're going to make a mistake, do it there. It then gets sharpened you up for the cross country. Whereas now it's you've got to be at that start box and going. And I think horses need to be just as fit now without the chase as they were with the chase, because you've still got that 10-12 minutes of gallop work to do. The horses do recover amazingly well after the steeplechase when they've had that 40 minutes of frozen tracks, and your 10-minute halt at the end as well. They sort of rejuvenate themselves, but they have to be just as fit now as they were then. Personally, I think so.
Well, we look then at how the sport's changed. Obviously, you had that traditional long format that we don't have anymore, although the riding clubs have adopted that at their championship now, which is quite interesting to see. But another way that the sport's changed is not just media coverage, but the influence of social media. Now, is that something that you think has had a positive spin on the sport?
it does mean there's a lot more views out there, and a lot more views that are open to scrutiny. And I do think you get comments that are unnecessary, and there's a lot of good things about it. I'm not that great at Facebook. I stalk people. Well, I don't stalk people. I'm nosy. I like to see what's going on out there. I don't often comment because it's not my place to do that. If I feel somebody wants advice, or I've got some very good sponsors. I'm very loyal to my sponsors. They're very loyal to me. If it's something to do with Spiller's horse feed, I'll share that. I'll comment. If it's something to do with Amerigo saddles, they've been with me for 20 odd years, as have Spillers. I'll comment. I'll share. But I don't want to get into any tickle tackle. It's just not. I don't like it. It's not right. And I do think as well, a lot of stuff on Facebook, everybody puts the positives. You don't see a lot of negatives, and it doesn't necessarily. It's not true to the world that we live in with horses. Everybody has a crap day where the horse doesn't go well, but that's never portrayed. But I can guarantee you it happens. So you have to look at everybody's good bits as the good bit that they had for that 10 minutes of the day.
Yeah, I think.
And not think that it's wonderful the whole time, because it isn't. Yeah,
absolutely right. I think very seldom do we see people post on social media, had an awful day today, this happened, that happened. It either is a great positive post or it just doesn't go on, which is a shame that that's what has been adopted by not just the equestrian community, but I think sporting and everyone in their lives as a whole. But I mentioned media coverage as well. I think that's something that is on the up. Do you think we might start to see equestrian sport in a little bit more mainstream media as the years go on?
It'd be nice. I mean, obviously Badminton and Burley, and I think the championships are covered. The Red Button is great as well. We've had the RM series out there live streaming, and there's a lot more live streaming, I suppose. And as long as you're aware that it's there, it's easy to find it and look for it. And actually, within the equestrian world, and it's funny, I look through all my posts. Every single post that somebody's put on, it's all horse related, because I don't know many people outside of the horse industry.
Outside of horses.
Yeah, but that's all I'm interested in. So why do I need to know about anything else? But if with the live streaming, it can certainly help promote the sport. And actually, when I was in my role as selector, it was really useful, because I couldn't get to a lot of events, certainly events abroad, and a lot of stuff was live streamed, and it was really, really good to watch. And it was good to watch and learn from it, not just watch because of I was in that position where I had to be watching.
Yeah, and you mentioned your time there as a selector. Quite an interesting part of your career, really, to go from riding for judging panels to then being on one, and that was 2017 to 2018, I believe. How was that? How was that for you? As a selection committee.
It was really interesting. I think having been on teams and selected quite often, I used to think that the team usually selects itself, which in a way it kind of did, because you didn't have the strength in depth. Whereas now there are a lot more really good, talented riders, a lot more horses, and riders have got several horses to choose from as well. There is a lot more strength in depth, so it was quite difficult sometimes, and there would be very long meetings, etc., and it wasn't an easy job, because you had to choose. And unfortunately, people were disappointed. I've had that myself as well. But that's life. That's the way it is. You just try and choose the right people to go to that championships. Fortunately, in the 2 years I was there, the teams went really well, and they're amazing.
Yeah, Maybe it's all down to you, Jeanette. Maybe that's why.
No, it wasn't just me. I had a small part. It's down to the riders at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And the team and the management, and well, I say team and management, there's everything, barriers, physios, you know, the list is endless. It's not just the horse and rider, it's the whole team around the horse and rider.
It's always really interesting to see, you know, we see that the horse and the rider come out the start box on cross country day, but actually how often do people look back and really see the support team behind them? You know, it's an incredible amount of people at the top level. It really is, especially when you ride for Team GB, even more so than just competing at the top level. So it's always interesting to see, you know, how much goes into creating those athletes, both horse and rider. But also at the time you spent time on a panel, was at the Burley Young Event Horse as the ride judge. You know, how was that as an experience?
So 2018, I did that. I can't remember. I think it's 2017. I broke my ankle. In the spring, 2017, I think I broke my ankle. So then it was 2018. I was asked to be the ride judge at Burley, and I'd kind of developed my own technique of getting off the horse. So I didn't land heavily on my right foot. I sort of leg over, slide down the horse, and then land on the left foot. I think, God, I hope these young horses can cope with that. And they were all right, actually. And funnily enough, the following year, so then last year, I was in the final on a horse, and Ian Stark was the riding judge. And I said to Ian, I said, you look as bad as me trying to get off. We're like a pair of cripples trying to get off the horses, because he'd had a pelvis injury a few years back, and he just had it, I think he just had it operated on that year. So we were in sympathy for each other.
Obviously, you know, in the past suffered more severe injuries, but what goes behind then getting back into the sport as quickly as possible?
Well, obviously, you've got to recover from an injury, i.e. the bone has to, or whatever injury it is, ligament, bone, whatever, it has to heal. But then quite often it's the physio work, excuse me, that takes the length of time. And I think also the mental side of it, as in, you know, you've had an injury, it obviously hurts. The way I usually deal with it is that I think I've been quite lucky. I've broken 2 collarbones. That one first, that's got a metal plate in. That one second, that's lumpy. And broke my ankle, freak accident. And I know why the 2 accidents happened, so I can process that in my mind. If I'd have been injured and thought, now how on earth did that happen? I don't get that, and couldn't sort of justify it as to how it happened, to have the thought process to then put it behind me. Each time it's happened, I know why it's happened. So that's been easy mentally to work out. But the worst one was my ankle, where I'm pretty sure it dislocated at the same time. I remember this feeling of, if I look down and my foot isn't in line with the rest of my leg, I'm going to seriously cry or pass out. Anyway, I knew it was quite bad at the time. But so then I was in plaster. I was on crutches, and went back a few weeks later for an X-ray, and I went, "Oh, we've missed a fracture." And I thought, oh, Jesus Christ, why didn't I pick up in the first place? And I went back to look at the original X-ray. And, oh, there it is. And that was the most frustrating bit, because then it was another 3 weeks in pot, and it's a 3 weeks more. So it wasn't the time that was the issue. I mean, with the issue, it was more the fact that you're immobilised for that long. It can take you longer to get back.
Yeah.
I was really lucky to be able to go up to Jack Berry House in Yorkshire, and they were fantastic, because you could go in the hydro pool, you could do the exercises non-weight bearing, and just get it. And the physios there were great, and gym sessions were brilliant. So it just got you moving a lot quicker. But you know, it took a good year for it to feel good. But like even now, I come down the stairs a step at a time in the morning until I get going. And some days it's stiffer, and other days it's not so bad. But riding horses, it doesn't hurt at all. Apart from when I first put my foot in the stirrup and shove my heel down, I get a bit of stiffness, and it goes, and you get on with it.
Yeah, very resilient indeed. And I think what you've got to be aware of is that if you're not riding, the business isn't probably generating, as much as it should. So I suppose it's always at the forefront of your mind to get back on and get going again.
Yeah.
But obviously the sport of eventing, equestrian sport as a whole is dangerous, but eventing probably the most high-risk sport in the equestrian world. And talking about risk, you sit on the risk management committee with British Eventing. What's that experience like?
That's good, actually. I mean, not only do you sort of have an insight to see how BE works and how it runs, and the different committees that keep the rules in order, discuss things that need addressing, to try and keep the sport progressing. It is really good. And the risk management thing, it's all right. Yes, it's about minimising risks within the sport. But it's how you do all those kind of things, and we've amalgamated with the sports committee, which means that one meeting doesn't have to wait till the next meeting's happened to approve something. We can all talk together, and everybody's very, very open-minded. Questions get thrown in. It's all thought-provoking, and at the end of the day, we're all trying to do our best job to keep the sport moving in the right direction. I like doing it. It's really interesting. I've been on the committee for quite a while. I'm sure at some point they get to a time where they'll say you've been here too long, off you go. But I'm still there. I'm still there at the minute.
And it's nice to see the sport going in that forwards direction. But one thing that was introduced not too long ago was the introduction of frangible devices. Now, that's obviously created a bit of a stir within the equestrian community. Some people are a bit on the fence about them. It's obviously made the sport safer, but do you think it's pushed the boundaries of course building too far?
I think everybody's learning the whole time. I mean, the frangible pins, they've been out for quite a while. The MIMS clip has come out more, or been used a lot more recently in this country. And each device is better for different types of fences, I think, whether it's a front pin or a back pin or a MIMS clip. It doesn't work for every single fence, so that's why it has to, different devices are put on different types of fences as to where they're situated, etc. But I think as long as the innovation keeps moving, the analysis keeps going on, the data is collected, etc., then we can keep working forwards. And you mentioned about, has it meant that people are pushing the boundaries slightly? I felt that Burley last year used more clips because there were like the more open fences, oxes, the corners, etc., and I think they were potentially not. I don't think they were necessarily the right fences in that position, just because you could put clips on them or pins on them. But it did mean they were safer than if they didn't have the pins on them.
Yeah.
So that's where you are slightly, but you're living and learning. Everybody from the event, course designer would have gone and had a look at the data, watched how the horses jumped those fences, how they reacted, and every day is a learning curve.
Yeah, definitely. And from a control team or a commentary perspective, when you see those devices activated, it's a bit of a relief, really. It's quite nice to see them working and them creating a bit of a safer environment for these horse and rider combinations. So that is fantastic to see. But it's always nice to look back on some of the highlights of your career. Obviously ridden at multiple championships, 2 Olympic Games, many completions at badminton, in fact 13 completions. So only 2 more completions away from
2 more for another dish.
For another dish, the Armada dish is what we're.
I'm up for it. I'm up for it. I just need the tools at the minute. I've got some lovely young horses, I'd love some, a couple more top class horses. I've still got the drive, the ambition. I believe I've still got the ability to be at that level, but you can't do it unless you've got the tools. I love training the young horses. I love coaching riders. I do a lot of teaching at the minute. Well, more, we just picked it up again now, but I do a lot of coaching. I love helping people, but I'm still want to go back and do 4-star level. I look at William, Pippa, Tina. They're all still older than me. Only just. But I'm not ready to hang my boots up yet at all.
No, definitely not. I think it's quite exciting to see what the future holds, and some quite exciting young horses coming through the ranks too, which will hopefully facilitate that move back up to 5-star level. So that could be really exciting. But thanks, Jeanette, for joining me here for episode 3 of In Conversation. It's been brilliant to look back all the way from the childhood, all the way to then onto the top level of equestrian sport, and hopefully, as we say, still got it in you to get those 2 extra badminton completions for that 3rd Armada dish. It'll be exciting.
That would be great.
What the future holds. But again, thanks for joining me, and I wish you all the best. Stay safe.
All right, you too. Cheers, Larry.